What did you know and what didn't you know?
Elizabeth, surprised at the party.
He's trying to come to dinner. Thanks for having us.
Hey, don't get everyone wet.
When I heard you're going to Gianni's, it sounded good.
No, leave it on.
No, you're wet. You're wet, Daddy. You're wet. You're wet. No, you're all cold. You're still wet. It's no good.
Straightened up. Oh, there he comes, the intimidator. You putz. How do you feel?
Hi, Dr. Terry. Isaac Gilhart.
Oh, you couldn't mind. He was buried in the back of the car.
Following around.
He's doing a good job.
First sign I saw.
We're here to celebrate a particular man's particular birthday. I have the honor of having him recently at my birthday. Short. I'll talk as briefly as he did.
I'll talk as briefly.
Let's go back to 1955. Okay? I fell in love. I met my wife.
Yes.
I gotta see who she is. And we've been married for many, many years. But it wasn't my first love. Occurred several years prior. In 1952. September 1950. To be exact. The day that I met my dear friend Donald Ryan. We were classmates together at Fordham University, Fordham College of Pharmacy. And while our relationship is a little different than the one between myself and my wife, it's always remained to me a relationship of love.
Thank you, brother.
He's not finished.
I was blessed to have my last name start with the letter B, Edinger. Because in our class, when they sectioned us up, they grouped you by your last name alphabetically. And I can't remember all the names, but we had in our group in section 1, Emerson, Engel, Ettinger, and then I think Feynman, Moran, Fitzgerald. So you can see we were physically fortunate enough to be connected. The years have gone by. My love for Donnie has never changed. He's a very special man. We all know this. And if I could think of one word to categorize Don, it would be the word big. Because at school, if it was your birthday, You got big shots on the arm. In those days, thank God, we were only 18 and 19 years old. Today, I would be paralyzed. But big in that respect, big in the smile, big in his generosity, and big in his heart. I'm sure each and every one of his children and grandchildren and family members know exactly what I'm talking about. They are truly blessed to have Don in their lives.
Yep. Okay, Ron, you're up.
I just came out of the men's room. Didn't get a chance to dry my hands. Unfortunately or fortunately, I was asked to speak at this wonderful function after Donnie and I go back over 70 years. I won't tell you our age because we're on. I've spent many a morning hour laying in bed trying to think about the things we did as young men in Astoria. I remember very vividly that his dad, we referred to as Doc Fine. In those days, we didn't go to doctors. We used the pharmacist as our doctor. And God bless him and his sister and his mother because they always accommodated our needs. And I was never a healthy youngster, and my mother would send me there, and he always kept a very good supply of aspirins, mustard plasters, all right, and what else? Aspirin. What do I remember? They lived behind the pharmacy, his sister and he, and Doc Fine always had something that we Italians use as a tea. Chamomile tea. Chamomile tea. That was the end all for winter problems, and I had a lot of problems. Earaches, swollen glands, it went on and on. But thank God for Mr. or Doc Fine because he always had what we needed. All right? All right, Donnie and his sister helped his parents in the store in a limited fashion. Of course, they weren't counting pills at that point, but they were helping out. And they had the pharmacy, and in the back, I believe, if memory serves me right, you were living there, correct? Correct. Then we used to hang out at the corner of Molly's candy store, which she sold everything under the sun. But the end all was that we used to have candy, ice cream, egg creams. Those of us who remember. And we used to play, what was it, handball against the side of her building, and or triangle, or Johnny Rides the Pony. When we played Johnny Rides the Pony, Donnie was always a little bit stronger than most of us. So when we had the pony, we set him up in the middle. So when we jumped over the kids, he would be able to withstand the forces of the impact. We did our best. But we graduated from that, and we used to be hanging out on the corner. We never got into trouble. We didn't do drugs, we didn't drink, we didn't murder, we didn't steal. But we used to get sent to the other corner. Molly would say, enough, I need this. So we'd go to the butcher shop, right? Jerry would let us sit there because at night he would close, so we used to hang around at night. Then we graduated to playing softball at the infamous Cheese Box. It was a, what would you call it, playground adjacent to the Triborough Bridge. It looks like the shape of a cheese box. Left field was humongous. You couldn't see the fence. Right field, you could spit over it. But anyway, Connie was a terrific hitter. He could hit the ball forever. fielding.
Fielding.
We nicknamed him.
Excuse me, Ron. Hey, Ron.
Points of order.
We
One
nicknamed,
thing, let me just interject.
yes, sir.
That field was really, really weirdly shaped. But there were only two men who ever was able to hit it over that left field fence. Ralph Savino
Right.
and my pop.
But home
Grandpa.
plate was
And
right
my
in front
dad.
of a big flag pole. If you hit the ball over right field, you were automatically
Right
out.
field was 90 feet away, left field was 400. And my daddy hit it over.
But we nicknamed him the Hank Greenberg of the cheese box. I don't know if you know who Hank Greenberg was.
Yes.
He was a
Yes.
premier hitter.
When
in
you
the
live
Euro-
with Don Fine, you always know who Hank is.
All right. When we got to high school, before we got involved with girls, we used to go to the movies on weekends, either a Friday or Saturday night, correct? And some of the theaters were on Ditmars, which were the Grand and the Ditmars. And after that, we would go into the Jewish Delicatessen, which was adjacent to the Ditmars Theater, and have hot dogs, knishes, and French fries. Well, we were a rowdy group, so the waiter, who I think was Moish, he used to put us in the back of the restaurant because we were rowdy guys. But we had a good time, and that's when I was introduced to celery soda. Never tasted celery soda. They were so right. But that was the premier drink. All right, wasn't it celery? Celery soda. What? Hey, 80 years old. You think I can remember? All right, then when we used to go on weekends, either a Friday or Saturday night for our outing to the movies, right? We used to go to the different theaters, and there was one theater up on, was it Steinway Street? The Astoria Theater.
Right?
And we were up in the balcony one night, and we created a bit of a disturbance. And of course, we were kind of rowdy kids, but hey. And the usher came up, then the manager came up, and he said, "You guys have to leave." But there we were. But we left. Donnie, thank heavens, was able to talk to the manager and was able to get our money back.
What was the movie?
Dead men fight for their lives.
Thank God for his negotiating abilities. Anyway, then we graduated while in high school to basketball. All right, we formed a team. I think Gregory Cannell, who was seated at the far end, was part of the team called the Bombers. If I remember, our uniforms were blue and white. And we were local guys, so we threw everybody together, and we used Donnie as our intimidator. He was the Dennis Rodman of our we would put him in the middle of the basketball team. He wasn't the tallest guy, but he was the biggest. We always assigned him to the biggest basketball player on the offensive team, and he would rebound and get us baskets. Get us the basket. He didn't make a lot of baskets, but he sure gave us the ball. We won more than we lost more than we won. Wishful thinking. But, we all played, and it was, the neighborhood gang that got together, and we used to hang out at Joe the Bake's, right, on the corner, and then we'd go to the games by either bus or train, whatever it was. And we had a good time. All right? He was a great rebounder, terrible shooter.
I stole that.
But hey, the Intimidator was his name.
Nicknames.
The only problem we had with Donnie was that he was so aggressive. That by the halftime of the game, he already had 4 fouls, and you were only entitled to 5. At the end of the game, he was already fouled out. And of course, we lost. But we had a losing record, but we had great times. And then we got finished with high school, and all of us went separate ways. I think you went to Fordham.
Yeah.
And some of us went into college, others went into the workforce. And we kind of lost track of one another. And I know after Fordham you went to the pharmacy school there, correct? And then he got married early while the rest of us had to face college, and then at the end of college the military for 2 years or whatever it was. Some of us, like Gregory, was 4 because he was an officer. God, I was a lonely sailor for 2 years. That was enough. But we did lose touch. But in 1965, I don't know if you remember that, Gregory was the captain or the manager of a fast-pitch softball team called the Bombers. And we played out in Fresh Meadow. Unfortunately, we were a terrible team. We had no hitting. So he decided to call the Hank Greenberg of the cheese to make his comeback. And at what age were you? Let's see. You were 31 years old then.
He was 32.
You made your comeback. Well, the great Jewish hope arrived to help us. But unfortunately, and I will read some stats which some of you may or may not know, I will give you an idea of what, and I have the paperwork to prove it. All right, he had 21 at-bats, which means he was up 21 times. He had 3 hits. One was a double, all right? He had a total base of 4 bases. He had 1 RBI. He had 1 base on balls, excuse me. But he had 5 strikeouts. The end all was he had a total batting average of, are you ready for this? I mean, you best 1.143. The great Jewish hope.
It was me.
Well, needless to say, he ended up with a 6-win record and 19
Excuse me a second. Those dismal statistics.
I got him right here, baby.
I got an award.
Yeah, for the comeback kid of the year. Wait a minute. Defensively, he was an outfielder. He had 9 putouts with 1 error. Not too bad.
That's good.
But the hitting after that, needless to say, after the season ended, we put him on the bus, heading back to I kind of renewed our friendship when he and his dad, yes sir. No, he never, what do you, Jewish guys don't play ball.
Play volleyball.
No, he didn't play volleyball. Come on. Yeah, where, in college? Yeah, that's after he retired from basketball? All right, I don't know.
Thank you,
When they moved from Astoria to the Strand Pharmacy on Broadway, we kind of lost touch with one another because we all went our separate ways. You know, some of us went to college, others went to the workforce, we went to the military, etc., etc. But he had gotten married early, as I remember, to his first wife. Well, were you still in school then? Yeah. Anyway, he had a lot of kids so he could avoid the grandkids. He figured, hey, I might as well enjoy myself. Why should I go carry a gun? For Uncle Sam.
Hurry up, Ronnie.
Okay. But then I remember when he and his dad were at the pharmacy and I was working in the area for an orthopedic company on Friday afternoons. On my way back to Georgia, I would stop in and we would
Ronnie, hurry up.
and he and his dad would be there figuring out the point spreads. What are we going to bet this weekend for college, professional basketball and football? And between counting out pills, he and his dad would decide on what they were going to bet. And they had a customer that was a bookie, correct, that would come in and pick
Sammy.
up the bets.
Sammy Romano.
Time out. I'm finished. No, I'm not finished. Nobody gets me. Then he and his son, where is he now? We would go up evenings to the Fordham basketball and play basketball. Well, the son was just like his dad. The apple doesn't fall from the tree. We'd work out there, but it was great time. To make a long story short, let me just say this. We have been keeping in touch, not as much as we'd like to, mostly by phone, to see that we're both still alive. And I know that he has had his medical problems, but he's still there. I ordered the wheelchair for him, but the motorized, they told me was on back order. Anyway, let us all, if we may, raise a glass. As they say in Italian, cent'anni, another 100 years.
It's really very short. My love for Don is huge, but I just have a few words to say. So we all know the phrase behind every great man is a woman, right? And some people say that behind every great man there's a woman rolling her eyes and shaking her head. And some people might say that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. I say, and I know you all agree with me, that beside, where is he?
Over there, he's right here, he's right here.
Beside this great man is this extraordinary woman. Over the many, many, many years that we've been friends with Don and with Liz and the family, the thing that has become part of our life is their generosity, their extraordinarily loyal friendship to us, their support in the good times in our lives and the times that aren't so good in our lives. And they're just the most giving, kind, considerate friends and family you'd ever hope to have. And I have to read this part. Above all, the thing that we cherish about Don and Liz is the laughter. Because when you're with Don and Liz, you know you're in store for a good time. You know you're going to laugh. And for Liz and for Don, the glass is never half empty, but it's always half full. And it's truly thank you so much. It's lovely to see you.
Don's granddaughter, their favorite. I am lucky enough to let me live with them. And through the years, looking back on these pictures especially, he's been ever present and picking us on trips and going on cruises and going on vacation and always being there, which is great. I've never met someone who's so particular about a microwave door in my entire life.
Because he broke it.
And I didn't break it. And the shower curtain, and hair in the drain, and the vacuum.
That's the timing.
But I do all these things because I love them, and
What thing?
I don't know where I would be if they weren't around. In the street, yes, probably. And I'm so thankful that he's in my life and my grandma, and I love you so
You're getting pulled off that.
Gotta move that Monday.
You know, as a kid, talking about running, 70 years you go back. And I always consider him one of my best friends. So now you know the problem I have in making friends. Donnie, you know the old saying? You can't say something good. There's going to be a big pause now. Donnie, I go back to Molly's candy store. Your family made a great impression on me. Sheila, yourself, Mom, Lena, and Ben. The best pharmacist of the group was your mother. Am I right?
Everybody knows
Brooklyn
that.
College, the rest of them went to Fordham. They were terrible. She was something else.
It was good.
It was a great family and a great guy to be with. And the one thing I'll always remember, he was the best street fighter in the world.
Ever was in a fight. Yeah, we knew that.
I always wanted Donnie on my side. Make it look good. But I knew where my allegiance came. He was intelligent. He was a great athlete. And a great friend. And I'll never forget you, Donnie. And I'm glad that I had the exposure to you in my lifetime.
Encore, too short.
Okay, Ron, are you up? Okay, so the only reason that you're all here is because of me. Okay, so you're all here, right? Because of me. It's true. Okay, so the only reason that all of you are here is because of me, because I don't know how many years ago, 20-something, 27. There was a pharmacy next door to a little bake shop, and somebody's father passed away, somebody's mother passed away, and I said to Madeline. Oh, yeah. I said, when that man's ready to date, let me introduce you to my mother. And the rest is history. Yeah.
Thank you.
So you have a grandson named after her father.
Yeah.
Right? And, sorry. You have great-grandchildren. Yeah, you have great-grandchildren. You have a blended family. And and you have so much love, and from all your friends, whether you're in a fight. Let me tell you a story about this guy. Okay, so we're a little bake shop, a pharmacy next door, and this guy, I have somebody running over to me and saying, "Oh my God, something happened to Donnie. He's knocked out." He full on went after some guy, got knocked out in the pharmacy, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" And I run over and I'm like, "Oh my God, who?" And he has no clue who he is. He's like got knocked out, and he's like, we're in the ambulance going to St. Vincent's Hospital, and he's like, "Oh, I know who you are," and he had no clue who anybody was, and that's just how everything in relationship to everybody that happens. And you know what? It's just amazing that we all get together, we all have a blended family, and that, you know, sorry, that you're such a great guy, and that we all love you so much. And he sucks at football this year.
And that's the only fight he ever lost.
I live in the same building as Liz and Dawn, and I really don't know when they even moved in because I never interviewed them. So I really wasn't sure.
You would have turned them down.
That they were, yeah, probably. But anyway, the only time we ever saw each other was passing in the hallway, because in those days I was still working, and I used to go away for any vacation I could get my hands on. And Don would see me in the hallway. He used to say, "Well, are you coming or going?" And I used to be basically coming. He said, "Can you help with your luggage?" I said, "No, I'm fine. It's good to go." But that was the only time through the years that basically I ever saw them, until there was a blackout and no one helped them because no one cared. That was basically it. They sat in darkness. But anyway, after all these years, they're still part of the Riveredge group, and it's nice to see him clothed, because sometimes when I come down to the apartment, he's sitting on his favorite chair or sofa, whatever, and he's really never fully clothed. He has his t-shirt on, his shorts on, and Liz will say, "Well, you know, Jenna's coming down." So he usually waits till I get there, and then he sometimes he'll run into the bedroom, put a pair of pants on, or when he comes back from vacation, he comes back in 30-degree weather, and I say, nice outfit, good clothing, whatever. But anyway, I think when I met Liz and Dawn, it's interesting. I come from a small family, but I've sort of become part of another family, so it's a good thing. And Liz and I, through the years, we bonded, but Don, I can remember when I have dinner down there, he brings out, what is it, Talente? Is it? He said, "What do you want for dessert?" He brings out the 4 pints, puts on the table. He said, "Let's try this, and this. And the other thing is, in Florida, if we're there together, sometimes he'll tell me basically, he'll be out around 2 o'clock in the morning. He's looking for a fix, which is usually a piece of pie, cake, something sweet. He said, "If you get up, you sleepwalk, you're gonna find me in the kitchen." So, walk slowly, quietly, whatever, because we don't want to run into each other. But anyway, through the years, we're definitely good friends. He walks past my unit in the morning. He says to her, "She's cooking bacon again." Oh my God, it's like 5 days in a row she's making bacon. I can smell it. This is it, whatever. And actually, while they were away in St. Martin, they had to move their car. And actually, I drove the car more than they did. They had just gotten it. I backed it up. I pulled it back into space. I moved it again, pulled it in. But he was very glad that I took good care of it. But anyway, for friends later on in my life, because people think I'm old because I hang out with older people, and that's the idea. So it's good to know that I still have 2 friends that I can truly count on, the best, for another 80 years.
Who happens to be in Alaska babysitting for her grandchildren. And she really wants to be here. She didn't want to be in Alaska, and today in Alaska, you'll be happy to know, it's snowing.
It's snowing in Alaska.
And so, to my sweet older brother, Roses are red, violets are blue. How lucky am I to have a brother like you? I was an absolute pain in the ass, but you always gave me a pass. Remember all the sports programs you missed? Because I reminded Mom her favorite show, I Love Lucy, was on. Remember all the times I exasperated you? Hitting me wasn't an option, but you bent a pot trying. Remember the infamous canoe trip from hell, which some of you were already on? Yeah. I have to say on the side of that the only thing that Sheila says that the only two people that got along on that trip were Alan and Terry.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Which trip?
They were the only two people that did
Virginia. It's true.
We
were the only one who rode too.
They brought me and Charlie closer.
Oh shit.
I pushed you to the brink of dunking me in a well. In all our years, I never heard you curse, but that day you shouted the four-letter word. I remember the time you arrived home from a date and found me in the kitchen crying. I had just punched my date for getting too familiar. You were out the door, ready to chase down the car that had already left. You were and still are very comforting and protective. However, I do recall you tormenting me over water snakes. You rescued from the East River. You placed them in the store window and tormented me at night about forgetting to put the lid on the jar. I will never ever forget the time Robin left for Vietnam and I remained in Fort Benning. I was scared and stranded. You called assuring me I wasn't alone and that wherever I needed, you would be there. You probably don't remember, but I will never forget. You made me feel safe. Most of all, I remember when we were in our teens and in the basement having a booming argument. Mama yelled down from above, "You'll love each other one day." She was right. I love you up to the sky, wide as the world, deep as the ocean, and infinitely more. Your pain in the ass, but loving sister, wishing I was there.
When my father would tell me about all the fights he would have and how tough he was, and he told me all these stories, I'm a son. I'm like, yeah, Dad, right. But one time I actually saw it, and so this story, if you've heard it before, indulge me, but it needs to be said today. It's funny and it's sad at the same time. Because this man who's you and your niece, but boy, when he was younger. Yeah. So he actually, there was a crazy person in our neighborhood. And as the story goes, and Larry, help me if you can. I think some young man made fun of my mom.
They gave her the finger or something.
Gave her the finger, did something. Right. And my dad heard, and just like that story with Sheila where he's out the door, he went and reprimanded a child. But it was the wrong child. It was the crazy man's child. So now, that night, I'm coming home from school. We're all home. We're having dinner. We're washing up, whatever. And there's a knock at the door, and there's a drunken man at the door saying, "Donald Fine, I want him to come out." And it was like the old school days. He wanted to fight my dad. And I said, "What?" And before I knew it, Dad was outside. So don't worry. And the guy was swinging at him, and my dad was saying, "Well, you don't want to do this. You just don't want to do this." And I'm actually now seeing my father in action. Yeah. I heard all these stories of him chasing crooks out of the pharmacy and catching them and beating them up. It was now all true. And as Dad's weaving, he's saying, "Look, if you're going to hit me, I'm only going to swing once. And that once is all it's going to take." And the guy kept swinging. And he was missing. And then my mom came to the door and said, "Donnie, what are you doing?" And that's when he got hit. And I was so upset that he got hit at all because he was so magical. Anyway, true to his word, he said, "Okay, you sure?" And I watched my dad one shot. And the guy was a cartoon. He was like this, all the way across our yard and down into a car. And Dad actually did it. I'm very proud of you. A man of peace. Yes, because he never started a fight. He taught us to never start a fight, always finish.
He was like Billy Jack.
Well, down.
We couldn't get Robert Mitchum. Pop was a big influence on our lives, and there were movies that he loved that we grew to love. He let us wake up in the middle of the night to watch a good movie before VCRs. Movies like Gunga Din and Thief of Baghdad, Bojas, and even some other movies from after 1939. But it's a Mad Mad World. Mad Mad World was a big favorite, and now we have the extended Blu-ray, which we have to watch together. Pop was always full of wisdom. He would say he was a simple man, and no one ever disagreed with him. But he had lots of quotable quotes, and he would say, "Don't wish away time." He would say, "Don't wish away time. It's good to go away, and it's good to come back." And he would say, "Don't ever fight with family, and definitely don't ever stay mad at family." That was always very important to him. His family is always very important. Let's see. Pop should have been a fighter pilot. So he was briefly in the ROTC. He wanted to fly, and the story is that I think they showed you your plane or something, but then they said just one more thing, and they gave him a test. They showed him a bunch of dots, and they said, "What letter does it say?" And he said, "What do you mean letter?" So and that's how we found out that he was colorblind. Of course, our mother found out he was colorblind by meeting him. She was going out with him for months before she figured out that he had an excuse for how he dressed. And our mom used to prepare like ties and shirts and with like coding about what matched with what, which was great. Sorry. And I shouldn't go too long so he's not a fighter pilot, but he drives like one. So if you've ever been in the car with him, he can thread the needle, really just zoom around in between traffic. And he could easily have been a cab driver in New York City. Things have gone just a little differently. He's more creative than he thinks. I think Alan alluded before. None of us could ever forget the movies that he created in his mind, most notably Dead Men Fight for Their Lives, which always seemed to be on TV when we would ask him what he was watching.
IP Daily.
What's the other one?
IP Daily.
Well, IP Daily was his favorite book. No, that was the author of it. The book's name was The Yellow Stream. Right. Get the joke right. By IP Daily. Right. Excuse me? But he was musically not so talented. So he told us a story about how very early on his music teacher would tell him just pretend to sing, don't really sing. But he was very proud of his talents because he could play the radio. Anyway, and he was also very proud of his accomplishments. Most notably, he would often tell us the stories about how he graduated during his class, which and he would always follow up by explaining the asterisk that he graduated in the summer and he graduated with 2 other people. Very proud of that. That's a really he's a great father and a great husband. By the way, he's told me how lucky he's been to have had 2 fantastic women in his life, and different chapters in life and both in the last. And we've been blessed with Elizabeth and her family. And so, for me, and I think other people in our family, and probably even for the neighbors, he was always a model of a good father and husband, always very affectionate and open. And so I've always just tried to think of what would possibly what would Donald Klein or Robert Mitchum do. And that's worked pretty well for me, and I think for many of us. Anyway, so thanks, Bob.
Okay, I'll get a knife.
What it dawned on me when I walked into the room, I saw a lot of familiar faces, but the first one I really recognized was Lawrence, because he was staying right in the doorway. And then when I saw Larry, I said, something's up. And something was up.
So you saw Larry, then who'd you see?
Well, then I went around saying hello to so many people. It was 3 hours in twilight. So
at one point you were looking around, but then you saw Ronnie and Greg, and you were like, "Hey!" like you saw, right.
Well, that was the joke. You saw them the least of anyone in the place.